In the silence of a forgotten cave, a group of explorers uncovered bones older than memory itself. The skeletons were twisted, their ribs sharp and broken, their faces frozen in suffering. The air inside the cave felt heavy, as if it carried secrets no one was meant to hear. One archaeologist whispered that these remains were not just bones, they were evidence of the darkest time to ever be human. But what had happened here? Why had whole families vanished without leaving more than fragments of their story? The light of the lanterns flickered against the cave walls, revealing markings carved by desperate hands. The drawings showed people huddled together, starving, afraid, and watching the skies as if they feared what came from above. Some images looked like fire raining down, others showed rivers turning black. The explorers could only guess, but every clue pointed to a world where life itself had almost ended. Outside the cave, the wind howled as if carrying the voices of those long gone. The silence between the researchers grew tense. They knew these bones told more than just the story of death. They spoke of survival against forces so powerful that humanity nearly disappeared. What event had been so terrible that it pushed humans to the edge of extinction? The answers were buried in the earth, waiting to be revealed. And the mystery was only just beginning. The sky turned dark without warning, and the world felt as if the sun itself had died. Ash drifted down like black snow, covering fields, rivers, and homes. Crops withered before they could grow, animals fell weak, and hunger spread like a shadow over the land. Families huddled together in caves, staring into the endless night, praying for light that never came. No one could understand what force had stolen the warmth of the sun. Some whispered it was the anger of gods. Others feared it was the end of all life. Travelers' stories told of forests turning silent, birds vanishing, and seas choked with ash. Entire villages disappeared, their fires extinguished, their voices lost forever. Those who survived lived in fear, scratching at frozen soil, searching for roots, anything to keep their children alive. Yet every attempt to live was swallowed by the blackened sky. Archaeologists today uncover layers of ash buried deep beneath the earth, proof of this forgotten nightmare. They believe it came from a massive disaster, perhaps a volcano, perhaps something even greater, that poisoned the air and stole the light. But no one knows for certain. All that is clear is this: for years humans walked in darkness, their numbers falling, their hope fading. Still, a few held on, clinging to life in the black world, unaware that the fight for survival was only beginning. Hunger soon became the greatest enemy of all. In the endless night, food was more precious than gold, and every grain of seed was guarded like treasure. Families watched their fields turn to dust and their animals collapse in weakness. Children cried until their voices broke, and silence followed when there was nothing left to give. Desperation spread faster than fire. Some scraped bark from trees, others boiled roots, while many simply starved in the cold shadows of the earth. But the darkest tales whispered of what happened when even those small scraps were gone. Neighbors turned against neighbors, villages tore themselves apart, and trust vanished like the sun itself. In shallow graves, bones show the signs of terrible choices, marks of knives, not meant for farming, but for survival. The line between human and beast blurred, and shame was buried with the dead. Archaeologists study these remains with trembling hands, seeing clear evidence of famine so brutal it forced people into acts they would never have imagined. The skeletons bear scars of starvation, their ribs sharp as knives, their bodies frail as twigs. Each discovery tells of hunger that nearly erased humanity from the earth. The question grows heavier. How could so few survive when the world itself seemed determined to see them vanish? The mystery deepens, and the shadow of hunger stretches over forgotten history. Hunger was not the only shadow stalking humanity. As food grew scarce and fear filled the night, people began to see each other not as neighbors, but as threats. Spears were sharpened, stones were lifted, and trust broke apart. The caves that once sheltered families became battlegrounds. Villages fought over scraps of meat, over a patch of roots, even over drops of water. What began as whispers of tension grew into silent wars, and the earth kept their secrets in mass graves. Archaeologists uncover skulls with cracks from heavy blows, bones pierced with flint spearheads, and pits where dozens were buried together. These were not victims of nature, they were victims of one another. The evidence shows battles fought not for power or land, but for survival itself. In those desperate times, kindness could mean death, and cruelty could mean one more day alive. Legends passed down through broken stories speak of raids in the night, of tribes stealing fire from rivals, and of blood spilled to guard what little remained. The silence of history hides the screams of those who fought in the dark, but the scars in the bones cannot lie. Humanity's greatest threat was not only the ash-filled skies or the endless famine, it was humanity itself. Yet even as the wars raged, small groups endured, carrying with them the fragile spark of survival that would decide the future of the world. Death did not only come from hunger or war, it came from an enemy no blade could fight. Strange marks on ancient bones tell the story of disease spreading through weakened bodies. Villages that had survived famine and battle fell silent overnight, their fires left burning with no one to tend them. Caves became tombs, filled with the remains of entire families who never woke again. Whispers of curses haunted the survivors, as if unseen spirits were hunting them down. The sickness struck without mercy. Fever burned through the young and the old. Coughs tore through the air, and sores covered skin like a map of suffering. With no medicine and no hope, those still alive fled from one another, afraid that even a touch could bring death. But the disease followed, carried by air, water, and fear. The survivors were left to bury their own, sometimes piling the dead in hidden corners of the earth. Archaeologists today find traces of these plagues in the bones and soil, proof that even nature's smallest killers played their part in this forgotten nightmare. Hunger had weakened the body, war had shattered the spirit, and now disease threatened to erase what remained. Yet somehow a few lived on, scarred but breathing, carrying with them the story of survival. But as the sickness faded, another truth became clear. Humanity had come closer to extinction than ever before, and the darkest trials were not yet over. The earth grew quiet, almost too quiet, as if life itself had been drained away. Archaeologists believe that during this era the number of humans across the entire world may have fallen to just a few thousand. Imagine that, the entire future of humanity balanced on a thread so thin it could have snapped at any moment. Villages disappeared, leaving behind only ash, stone tools, and bones. Whole regions were emptied, and silence replaced the sound of laughter, work, and song. Those who remained lived like shadows, hiding in caves, clinging to fire, and protecting every breath of life as if it were treasure. Each child born was a fragile hope, each elder who died a heavy loss. The world itself seemed determined to erase them, starvation, war, and disease pressing from all sides. And yet, against all odds, some held on. The suspense lies in the question: how close did humans come to being nothing more than a forgotten species? A shift in weather, one more eruption, or a sickness too strong could have ended the story forever. The bones found today whisper of lives on the edge, of people who faced extinction and somehow refused to vanish. Humanity's survival was not certain. It was a miracle carved out of desperation. And in that miracle lay the seed of something powerful, waiting to rise from the ashes of despair. From the ashes of despair came a flicker of hope. The survivors, few and fragile, began to rebuild their world. They carried fire through the dark, guarded stories in whispered words, and taught their children how to endure. Step by step the darkness lifted. The skies slowly cleared, rivers flowed again, and green returned to the land. Where once there had been silence, voices rose, songs were sung, and the rhythm of life returned. These small groups became the roots of humanity's future. Every village that rose from ruin carried the scars of famine, war, and disease, yet also the strength to overcome them. The memory of the darkest times shaped them, teaching caution, resilience, and unity. They learned to adapt, to share, and to fight only when survival demanded it. From their struggle, new ways of living were born, laying the foundations for the human story we know today. Archaeologists say it was this moment, fragile yet powerful, when humanity proved its greatest strength, survival against impossible odds. The darkest era did not end in silence, but in renewal. From caves to open fields, from fear to firelight, humans rose again. And though the past remains hidden in bones and ash, the truth is clear. Humanity's survival was no accident. It was willpower, resilience, and the unbroken spark of life. This forgotten history reminds us that even in the bleakest times, the human spirit refuses to die.